At best, the alien abduction phenomenon is a terrifying, traumatic experience. At its worst, well, we think they sometimes take people and don't put them back.
I lost my mother and brother to this trauma. He murdered her, then killed himself.
These women are being used as human incubators, with all their children stolen away into the night.
A 6-foot-tall entity of blue-white light paralyzed me, then bent down and said into my ear, "Hi, Steve." It knew my name.
We hear gruesome stories of experiments and dissections. Imagine dying on a metal table while paralyzed, surrounded by alien faces. It's a real horror story. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our show, Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw.
I'm Stephen Shaw.
And welcome. Tonight we had a last minute cancellation on our guests, so we're just going to talk about things we've been wanting to talk about, like some of the latest stuff we've been studying. Stephen's been studying this book called Sapiens, and I've been, studying online as well, and reading more books on the subject.
Yeah, read, people. It's important.
But we also wanted to talk tonight, just in our intro here, about Three-Eye Atlas. There's yet another thing I read that of all the other anomalous things that we mentioned in previous shows, that it also has sent us a radio signal, or sent out a radio signal upon entering the solar system, right?
Yes, that was fairly early on, yes. Confirmed.
And was there a second signal as well?
There have been various signals, and like I say, there's three main astrophysicists that are in the media about it. It's, of course, Michio Kaku, and of course Abby Lowe, and a guy by the name of Cox. Okay, and unfortunately, a lot of them have been deep faked. But there are certain truths that have happened, that have occurred. The course corrections, the speed changes, the anomalous speed changes, the excessive outputting of oxygen, the
lack of a tail.
The lack of a tail. The formation of the almost pure nickel.
Outgassing, right? It's outgassing pure nickel, and in infrared, it's showing a hot spot in the center, which is just not indicative from a comet.
You can look at it from the standpoint. Okay, this is the third one. Oumuamua first, then the Russian one, Borkovsky, whatever it was, and this one is the most anomalous of the bunch. And they're saying basically that it's looking like that it coming from the far extremes of the Oort cloud, which is part of our solar system. Our solar system is over 1.5 light years across. Okay, so people think, oh, it's just the solar system. It kind of ends at Pluto. Most people, no, not even close. Oort cloud is over 100,000 astronomical units away from us,
like
which is
2 billion miles or something.
Oh no,
200 billion miles.
One astronomical unit is 93 million miles.
Right. So
that's one astronomical unit. So times 100,000. Okay, so now you're looking at like even as we believe, Nibiru is 50 billion miles away, which is about 500 astronomical units. So you're talking about something that's 100,000, between 2,000 and 100,000 astronomical units, which is, by the way, which leads us into the thing about our dark partner, which we will talk about later.
And the other thing that's weird about Three-Eye Atlas lately is that it's been turning green, of all things. That's really odd. And as it was passing its closest trajectory towards Mars, as close as it came to Mars, as it was on its way back out towards Jupiter, the MAVEN Mars orbiter happened to die right then.
Right.
The MAVEN. It's just an orbiter that we had in the upper atmosphere of Mars. We were trying to
study the atmosphere of Mars, right?
Study the erosion of the atmosphere of Mars and the possible causes of it. We think it's because Mars lost its magnetic field, having cooled.
Well, it definitely did that for sure. That's why the solar winds totally tore it apart.
Then that will just slowly bleed your atmosphere off.
Yeah, it's 1% of ours, by the way, that we know of. It's 1% of ours.
But anyway, on the way by, the Three-Eye Atlas may have had something to do with the MAVEN failing.
Yeah, it becomes not coincidental after like 5 or 6 or 7 of these happen between the U.S. and the Soviet and the Russians. Sorry,
And the CIA has come out on that they're not going to share any of their 3i Atlas with the public, information with the public.
Never a straight answer.
And NASA is certainly not sharing.
Right. They won't tell us.
Yeah, they're not sharing their.
So we have to glean. We have to glean from what amateur and professional astronomers and people that are observing what they are getting. That is, non-biased information and observables. That's what we are going off of.
And the way they're behaving is pointing to it not being just a regular old comet either.
No, the way we know that for a fact. It's not just your run-of-the-mill comet. Okay.
Yeah.
So we know that. And we know that there are certain anomalies that we just can't explain yet. What they are, we don't know. But it certainly is looking like there is something more involved.
All right. Well, that was the latest news we had on 3i Atlas. So we'll take a break here, and we'll be back in just a few moments. Good evening. Are you wondering if the UFO phenomenon is real?
Are you wondering who is flying the UFOs in our skies?
Are you wondering if aliens are really abducting people?
Then you need to read this book.
The book is titled Who They Are and What They're Up To.
Find out the true identity of the aliens.
Learn a very brief history of the UFO cover-up.
Find out where the aliens are hiding.
Find out why our government is in league with them.
Learn about their bizarre hybrid breeding program.
Find out why their technology is 13,000 years ahead of ours.
The reference section of this book alone is worth the price.
Again, that was Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw.
Now available on Amazon and coming soon in the Spanish and Czech languages.
And soon to be in English and Spanish audiobooks.
With a new foreword by fellow author and abductee Karen Wilkinson.
Again, that was Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw, now available on Amazon. And we're back. Again, our show is Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw.
I'm Stephen Shaw, here again.
And we're a married couple that just love aliens and UFOs and talking
for good reason.
Cryptids and yeah, that's our lives.
Love is kind of a strong word.
We wanted to talk today. Stephen's been studying this book, reading this book called Sapiens, and we've been finding some of the information, and it correlates to our theories, and we wanted to share that information with you. According to the Sumerian tablets, the timeline for the Anunnaki's presence essentially is that they started their colony 450-ish thousand years ago. And then for 150,000 years, they're here mining gold themselves. And at 300,000 years ago, they had a revolt. The miners supposedly revolted against, this hard, onerous work. And the tablets claim that 300,000 years ago, they decided to take Homo erectus and uplift it into Homo sapien. They made us more intelligent. They made our brain more globular shaped. This was the time when the neocortex began to form, and we began to have the power of speech. And we think that because this happened so quickly, that it is a sign of uplifting. And also, we've seen there's been some tampering with the human genome at some point, showing like CRISPR edits to our genetics. So again, pointing to a possible uplifting scenario.
Yes, it's quite curious that there are three different texts. Harari's work, which I've been reading, Sapiens, kind of actually dovetails and actually backs up what we're talking about. We do know from three different sources that Homo sapiens, our ancestors are both, Australopithecus and of course, Homo erectus. Homo erectus was around from 2 million years ago to, almost for 2 million years, the most successful a species on the planet, much more so than Homo sapiens. Longevity for sure. Okay,
of the hominids.
Of the genus hominids. Okay, so anyway, around about 400,000 years ago was when the Homo sapiens and other related species that were kind of like not the Naletis, but the Homo sapiens for sure looks like there's evidence they started hunting big game. And also about 300,000 years ago, which seems to be a jumping off point as far as the tampering of the brain, the cut and paste job that Jason Martell was talking about, as far as in the Broca's brain area, giving us the power of speech, and also the ability to start controlling and using fire. So several major things happened. We began with the ability to manage and use fire. We began to get the ability to actually have speech and symbolically be able to like represent things. So around about 70,000 years ago, now they're starting to find cave paintings where now man is combining like a lion with a man with a lion's head, because the man runs like a lion. But also with this creative ability that we developed, this imagination, it also allowed us to be able to do things such as imagine how to harness electricity, how to build houses. So we had to make these developments, and it's looking like that, for instance, like Homo sapiens, they did interact with Neanderthals. And we do all have, most of us have at least, have a very small amount of Neanderthal DNA, 1 to 3%, and also a little bit of Denisovan, depending where you are. Okay. So there is the theory of either there was like the extinction theory that we were a more successful breed of Homo sapiens,
so
was more successful.
We sort of pushed out Homo erectus.
We pushed them out because of the food resources, and there's definitely indications that we did have two major interactions with the Neanderthals in Northern Europe, and certainly like in Southeastern Europe and even the Middle East. That's where the Neanderthals were about, let's say, about 200 to 300,000 years ago. Now, at a certain point, for some reason, the Homo sapiens decided to migrate north. And our first interactions we had with the Neanderthals, apparently the Homo sapiens lost. Because Neanderthals, number one, they're bigger, they're stronger, they have big brains, but their brains are formatted differently than ours. So there's the old saying, and it's true, that the bigger the brain, the bigger the drain. Now, it depends on how the brain is formatted. Now, Homo sapiens have almost the same size as Neanderthals, but the more sophisticated the brain means the more energy it takes. So even though human beings, we only consist 2 to 3% of our body weight is for the brain, right? But our brains take up 25% or more of our total energy usage. And guess what that means? This kind of gets into what we're talking about, with evolution of humans. As we get more intelligent, the body and nature selects less for giving muscle energy and also muscle development. You literally have to really work at it. The Neanderthals had that in spades. They had that all over us, but they didn't have the formatting of the brain. We could outthink them because we thought differently. So we moved and we conquered. So there's the replacement theory, and that's kind of what is favored in medicine right now and in archaeology and paleontology, is that we literally outthought them and we replaced them. We literally, because we're warlike. Okay, all Homo sapiens and all of the Homo genus seem to have, you're looking at a food source. Okay, I want to have that food source. I want to have that land. But we also have found, too, that there's a natural aversion. There's this whole thing that they're saying that Homo sapiens would not have interbred with Neanderthals because we look different, we smell different, we had different ways of thinking. We just had this natural revulsion. Like you can get a horse and a donkey you can force them to mate. They don't naturally want to, but they'll make a mule, right? So there is these anomalies that occurred that basically we conquered the Neanderthals, it looks like. And we have a small amount because there was some breeding that did take place.
Well, some people have said that it is impossible for them to have bred with us. Like, even if they did have sex, that there wouldn't be progeny. That's
where our theories about the uplifting comes in.
But right, let's suppose you've got, let's just suppose for a moment that the Sumerian tablets are telling us the truth, that the Anunnaki are an alien species that came here and uplifted Homo erectus into Homo sapien because they needed a worker. The difference between intelligence of Homo erectus and Homo sapien is quite dramatic. The neocortex is responsible for creativity and upper reasoning, higher reasoning, the ability to speak, of course, is in a
decision-making, yeah, critical thinking.
Critical thinking, yes, and imagination, rather than, so where a picture of an apple, you can understand that that's an apple, but Homo erectus wouldn't have been able to make that
abstract.
leap.
Abstract thinking is really one of the keys. As we developed, as we were given and developed abstract thinking, we were able to do such things as basically imagine building a building. And like I said many times, that the pyramids could not have been built unless they were blueprints. Okay, you can't do it by telepathy. You can't just by saying you do this, you do that. Okay, there has to be a plan. All right, so this thing...
we weren't quite smart enough.
Right, no. We weren't smart enough by ourselves to learn how to make blueprints, okay?
And that explains why mankind, Homo sapien, was so successful so fast. We're just...
Yes.
It looks like we developed in only about 50,000 years, which is lightning fast for evolution.
In fact, Harari in his book *Sapiens* says the same thing. It looks like that Homo sapiens are literally like a banana republic. All of a sudden, we were like the prey, and then we became the predators in such a short period of time. We learned so much so quickly that we were no longer at fear of being the slowest thing on the savannah and whatnot.
Right.
And because walking upright comes with its own negative consequences. For women, for breeding, the hips get narrower as you walk upright, which means that women would have to have babies that were not completely formed. So when a baby comes out of a woman, if she was younger and the baby was not come to full term, means then you have to have a socialization to be able to further bring up that baby. Like when a giraffe gives birth, that giraffe, the baby giraffe, is fully developed.
Yeah, it has to get up and run fast.
It has to get up and run. Not with Homo sapiens. Not with
they have to carry us for 2 years.
That's right. That's right. It's a totally different thing. Being upright comes with a lot of downside to it, but it has the upside of we have the more sophisticated brains.
And the difference in how we use our hands, going from being arboreal to a plains animal. This is one of the things that makes me think that the aliens are actually humans, that they're a breakaway branch of humans. And the reason I think this is that there are no other fully upright walking primates on this planet. The only existing upright walking primates on this planet are us, the aliens, and Bigfoot. Everything else, all of the other primates are still at least partially arboreal. And so their feet are literally have thumbs and hands. And Australopithecus died out about 2 million years ago.
Right.
And Australopithecus still had a thumb for a big toe. It was still an arboreal animal. And the next line up in our human evolutionary chart is Homo habilis. And this is where this big missing link is, right? The between Homo erectus and Homo sapien is a missing link, but the one between Australopithecus and Homo habilis is huge. We go from an arboreal creature to something with straight limbs, longer limbs, where we can run. Where what we think is that at some point, possibly, the area where these creatures were was completely deforested, and they were suddenly forced into the caves to take refuge. The refuge of the trees was gone, and the food supply of the trees was gone. So suddenly they have to change relatively quickly to being animals that have straight limbs that can run, and freed up their hands to make tools and weaponry, and would have changed their diets from being mostly plants and fruits and vegetables to being at least partially meats and grains.
And actually around that time period too, talking a couple of million years ago, even more recently, there were a couple of huge impacts down in the South African and the Indian Ocean areas, what we're talking about.
Celestial impacts once in a while, like
which
knocking us back.
which drastically
Again.
changes these, of course, the habitat as far as like the Earth's climate would happen. Like you get more savannas in certain areas. All of a sudden you got droughts, and it wouldn't take long for areas to become savannas. And so, yeah, you'd have the plains animals, and you'd have like a decrease in like rainforests in certain areas. And if there be like I say, we started hunting about 400,000 years ago. And so if we're going to go and we now know how to take down larger game, we're going to naturally want to kind of maybe go towards where the larger game is, as long as we know how to use caves, and use, we still didn't really know how to use tools that much apart from rocks and things like that. We don't have any evidence that we were doing any type of sophisticated tool making 400,000 years ago, but we have to eat, right? So.
And it's such a strange force upon evolution to cause this to change, to cause us to change from arboreal to non-arboreal animals. I think it's a relatively rare occurrence. It hasn't occurred anywhere else on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that this parallel evolution of upright walking hominids is taking place on all different kind of planets, I found that quite unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
And there were so many other things that pointed to our cousins, as we call them, the aliens being humans, because they can breed with us just by having sex with us. We said this on our show many times, but we think that's a critically important clue as to, that if you're having sex with us and impregnating us, that you have to be at least 99% human.
Yeah, it's like 99.97 or something. But yeah, according to Harari's work too, as of 100,000 years ago, or just maybe a little bit more than that, there were at least 6 distinct different genus on the planet of Homo
the variety of Homo sapiens. They're discovering more and more.
Actually, Homo sapien means wise man, where Homo erectus means erector, tall walking man, and Homo, the Neanderthal comes from the Neander Valley, and Denisovan from the Denisova caves. But of our particular family, there were at least 6 distinct different varieties, and we were one of the varieties, and we happen to be the most successful.
Yeah. We're the ones that came from South Africa.
We're the ones that Enki chose to uplift. And
we think the discovery of the Abzu in South Africa, we think further points to this being possible. That and at the time, 300,000 years ago, the Anunnaki were a world power. They had control. They had pyramid complexes all around the world, and they had mining operations in many different continents, and they would have had no trouble rounding up Homo erectus from Asia and bringing it to South Africa to then modify into the Homo sapiens that we think they did. But we also think they didn't stop there. There are 2 possible progenitors for the nuclear DNA for Bigfoot. Just not too long ago, Dr. Melba Ketchum, she was in charge of the Sasquatch Genome Project, and she put out her report. And of course, there's a lot of hue and cry trying to discredit her. But we checked it out, and she was using some of the most rigorous, testing methods.
Right.
Her lab is perfectly capable of doing what it was doing, and it found there were 111 samples of that they generated this genome from. And Bigfoot now has its own genome. It's Homo sapiens cognatus.
Cognatus, yes.
She actually uploaded the profile to the International Zoological Society, and they accepted it. And so Bigfoot is officially real as far as the international science community is concerned.
Her lab is completely up to snuff. Her investigative methods were completely up to snuff. She wasn't doing anything.
If anything, trying to be more
right. If anything, she had to go more painstaking, not less painstaking.
Yeah,
correct.
And her results have shown that Bigfoot, the mitochondrial DNA on Bigfoot, is human.
Yes.
There's like one gene that isn't turned on in them, and that is in us or something. But otherwise, it's completely human. And then, but the nuclear DNA is an unknown primate. And we believe that the Anunnaki really were doing these uplifting experiments 300,000 years ago. And 300,000 years ago on this planet, there were two creatures that you could probably have genetically combined with a human and created a Bigfoot from. The one that I think is most likely, there's two, but Gigantopithecus is one. And but the one I think is more likely is Australopithecus Robustus. If you ever have a look at what they think renderings of what they think this thing looked like, it looks like just a really enlarged, hairy human, very much like our Bigfoot friends. And obviously, we can't have mated with an unknown primate 300,000 years ago to create this hybrid species. That isn't possible. But if this genetic manipulation was going on back 300,000 years ago, it's entirely possible that they have created Bigfoots. And we think it points to them, who else is creating hybrids, weird hybrids, human hybrids on this planet? Well, one of them is the aliens, right? They're taking humans and breeding these bizarre human hybrid alien babies, and so they're obviously showing us that they have no qualms about using genetic manipulation. And the Bigfoot, it's not as intelligent as a worker as the human race, but they're certainly a lot stronger than we are. When you need something really strong or weatherproof, the Bigfoot is your man,
or work as guardians, or maybe to collect other samples and whatnot. And obviously too, that now it's actually been, Homo sapiens cognitus. Cognitus, right. So we know that, they've been seen at least on 6 out of the 7 continents, and most likely Antarctica. But
nobody's seen them there. Yeah,
that's a different story right there. But anyway, so there's not this one or two Bigfoot that just like live for thousands of years that are just happen to be walking around and have the power to go to. No, anybody with any sense will tell you that there are large breeding populations, and they wouldn't be evading. Unless they had some modicum or some degree of intelligence and also technology, and they had a purpose and a reason. Okay, so
and that's the thing. This guy this Bigfoot guy, Scott, what was his last name? Bennett Tanton on our show was just talking about him. He died recently, but he's the one that did a lot of research on the fact that Bigfoot has the ability to drain our electrical power, and the way we see it, I said this on our podcast with Bennett, but I think so imagine I'm a Lemurian living in Mount Shasta, and it's my job to handle the Bigfoots for the evening, the 10 Bigfoot sentries that I'm going to send out. I have equipped each one of them with this power draining device, and also a locator, and also maybe I have a way of telling whether and cloaking, and also whether they're alive or dead, the Bigfoot.
Sure.
A lot of people have reported where they're certain they shot one of these things, but then they go to find the body and it's just gone. We think that maybe they're collected if they're killed while on duty. All they have to do is open a portal, drag it back in, and done.
Yeah. And Bennett, by the way, Bennett Tanton has been in two branches of the military, the Marines and the Army. The Bigfoot he saw was with a group of kids.
Yeah, the Boy Scouts.
Right.
Scared the daylights out of them.
Had a horrible smell. The second one was when he was a Marine
in Alaska. Yeah,
in Alaska, and this was a big boy. See, he said it was about 9 or 10 feet tall. And it wasn't afraid of them. It looked at them, and they had guns. Of course, they had their M16s, whatever. And
a whole different scenario when you're a Marine holding an M16 than when you're a Boy Scout.
Right.
The boys just turned and ran, right? But the Marines, they can't do that.
Different area of the world, and a different, you're older. And also, too, when he went camping, they set up those perimeter cameras, and that was so interesting, where he had 2 different cameras, of course, electronically controlled cameras. And he had Bigfoot right there, right in his sights, and of his camera.
And the first camera drained all the battery right out of it, and then he picked up the second one, and that one did too.
And they were fully charged.
Yes,
and then when he had those cameras set up around his tent, and the Bigfoot came to check out, it went right to the area where there weren't cameras set up.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So they're intelligent. There's no question of that.
Yeah, and telepathic. We think.
Yeah, they're definitely telepathic, and we do see a lot of evidence, and he sees the same thing too, that they are working with our cousins.
Like the one thing that made me first think this was Lake Rupkund.
Yeah.
Lake Rupkund is this bizarre ass lake in northern India. It's actually on the slopes of Mount Kailash. And Mount Kailash, we think, is again one of these underground kingdoms. Shambhala is supposed to be, somewhere inside the mountains there.
A lot of stuff supports that.
And it's a UFO hotspot, and of course, Yeti are seen in this area. And but the lake is so odd. They found like 1,000 skeletons in and around this lake, and people didn't know what to make of it. They thought, well, maybe there was a battle here, and the losers just got thrown in the lake. But it wasn't like that. When they started doing the DNA testing on the skeletons, they found that they were from all different races and from all different time periods. The skeletons themselves spanned like 1,000 years.
Now sorry, I want to jump in there real quick there, as far as there is some debate about just if all of them had their heads bashed in. They do, apparently that area does get these freak hailstorms with these huge hail that will come out of nowhere, and they kill animals too by hitting them in the head, of course. So some of them may have been killed by hail, but not all of them.
Yeah, there's too many. There's 1,000 of them. So, and a lot of them do have their heads bashed in. So my thinking is that the Yeti, again, we don't think these are an animal that has just managed to elude us all this time. No. We think that they're being actually utilized as sentries or guards to some of these underground kingdoms we think exist. Shasta is an example. The Lemurians are supposed to be down deep into Mount Shasta. The Shambhala is supposed to be inside Mount Kailash. And we think that when an exploring party gets too close, at least on the slopes of Mount Kailash, the Yeti bash them in the head and throw them in the lake. And this is how they protect their sentries, their guards.
Yeah, it's interesting how so many of them have ended up in the lake.
Yeah,
it's like okay, here's the pit. We'll just throw them in the pit, and just get rid of them.
And it's above the tree line. It's really it's 14,000 feet.
Yeah, it's way above this. About 3,000 or 4,000 feet above the tree line. Exactly.
Yeah, and if there was a breeding size population of Bigfoot, every single location they've been discovered or been seen, we'd be up to our eyeballs in Bigfoots. They would be everywhere. You couldn't avoid stepping on them.
You could have Bigfoot soup. You never know. I know. It's just like no. There's a lot more to it, and they're not just some animal.
Nope.
They're not an animal.
They're half human. So no soup making.
No soup making. No, that'd be long pork, but very long pork.
You are so bad, Stephen.
Got to make light of this sometimes.
Yeah, so true. So one of the things we've said before that we like about our theories is that it tends to check all the boxes, and it also does for the Sasquatch phenomenon. It explains why it exists, how it exists. It explains why they have the power to suck the batteries dry on our batteries. It explains why there isn't a surface breeding population of them. And a
lot of things.
It explains a lot of things. Why it's half human.
Yeah.
How could it be half human?
Telepathic abilities, why they can communicate with us telepathically.
Right.
Which is the most primary way of communicating, by the way. We just happen to have lost the ability to do it for the most part.
And we think that if you can be telepathic with us, that's another sign that you have very similar kind of brain, very similar way your brain is laid out.
Right. The way I look at it is that telepathy is kind of almost like a sign language, but a sign language of the brain. You can't be as detailed as you can with a written language or a pictographic language, but you can get the point across. You can get the point across of a tree, or don't go here, or come here, or you're fine, or I like you. You can get those things across. I mean, that's why you can't use telepathy to build a pyramid. You need to be able to teach a working race how to read a blueprint and how to use tools.
Right.
Okay. And you have to, you have to reward them and you have to do things such as that. So that's why they would have to have somebody that has manual dexterity, which the Homo sapiens have, and teach them and, literally give them some ability to think.
And we don't know. I mean, for all we know, the Anunnaki, they started having a colony here 450,000 years ago, according to the tablets. But we don't know when they first discovered us or discovered Earth and came here. They could have been millions of years ago. For all we know, they're partly responsible for the missing link between Australopithecus and Homo habilis. Maybe they've uplifted us more than once.
Yeah, most likely they have. I mean, we're doing the same thing right now. Everything you were talking about earlier, Leslie, about, for instance, like, Bigfoot, having the ability to cloak itself and, drain battery power and whatnot.
Yeah.
These are all things that we're playing with right now, and in some cases already know how to do. I mean, like a few years ago, the Japanese were working on a cloaking device similar to Harry Potter. We can almost, at least 5 years ago, we can almost do that now. And we've been doing stuff since the 20s and 30s and 40s with cloning, boys from Brazil, eugenics, growing organs. We're doing that now, cloning babies. We've been doing this stuff. You can read all about it. This is nothing new for us. And believe me, we're pretty advanced.
Yeah. It doesn't take long before you, from cracking the genome to where you start modifying it,
That's right. So what should we talk about next?
Well, I think that should be the end of our show for tonight. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Unless, Stephen, you had something else you wanted to discuss tonight?
No, just part of my usual spiel. Just, hey, do some reading from once in a while. Don't take everything, as it is on the internet. Use your critical thinking. Take Tai Chi. Slow your brains down, okay? That's what it takes.
Thank you, dear Abby, for that advice. I appreciate it.
All right, do it.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. And have a good week.
Sayonara.
Bye.
Leslie, you're kidding me.
What?
Our merchandise store is up?
Of course, my darling. All of our amazing concepts of shirts, mugs, and bumper stickers are ready to go.
No way.
Way.
Even my brilliant Egyptian concept that no one else ever thought of before?
Yes, that one too, and lots more. All at our new store at etsy.com/shop/abductions101.
Wow. I want a shirt and a mug and...
Well, Stephen, and all our curious listeners, just go to etsy.com/shop/abductions101 to see all of our unique designs.
I'm going there.